G'day, I'm Paul. So with the government giving us more and more money as an incentive to buy commercial vehicles, companies like Toyota are creating special edition models. And that's what this is here. This is the updated Toyota HiLux, but this right here is the Rogue. This is one of two special edition models that sit above the SR5. There's the Rogue and also the Rugged X. This one here has gone up in price significantly. Now starts at just under $70,000. Yep, $70,000, and it competes with things like the Ford Ranger Wildtrak, the Isuzu D-Max X-Terrain, and all of those utes that have been assembled with extra bits to charge you a little bit of extra money. Today we're going to do a detailed review of the HiLux Rogue. If you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this review, you can use the time codes up on the screen there, or if you're on YouTube, just scroll down and use the chapters below. And if you haven't done so already, I'd love it if you could hit subscribe and press the bell icon. That's going to tell you every single time we drive something new. So you've got 9 exterior colours to choose from, and all but white is an additional $600. Let's talk about the design. The last generation of the Rogue, I don't know, just looked like an excuse to help you part ways with your money. This, on the other hand, I don't know, it kind of looks a little bit more complete. They've actually gone to a bit of effort to give it that tougher styling, but also still keep the luxury edge that the Rogue is known for. So you can see on the front here, big Toyota badge, and then you've got these brushed plastic elements that kind of offset nicely with these gloss trims, and especially in a dark color like this, it actually stands out a lot. I noticed on the way here, there were a lot of other tradies and utes checking this out. So I reckon this could be the type of car that your foreman drives, or someone that, you know, wants to look like they do work but don't actually do anything. So over here, LED headlights. I like this new design. So we've seen this on other models like the SR5. It's got these 3D elements off to the side, the bi-LED headlamp, and then this LED daytime running light. You've also got fog lamp down here. And if we jump around to the side, you can see here they've gone to a little bit more effort with the styling. So this connects to the front. They've now got this as a design inspiration from some of the big US trucks. I think it looks good. It sort of makes it stand out from a distance. I'd be curious to see what this looks like with the white color. I wonder if that looks like it's a little bit too much, but I think this design looks good. Unique 18-inch alloy wheels, and then you have semi-chunky tires here. I mean, they're not really all-terrains, but they're going to get the job done if you do a little bit of light off-roading or find yourself in a little bit of mud. Over here we have LED indicators in that wing mirror with another brushed plastic cover on the top. You get side steps, privacy glass, and then this. Now, Toyota describes this as a resin sports bar. Pretty sure that's just another word for plastic, but I think it looks good. Come around to the rear. This is where Toyota's really tried to make this vehicle stand out. So LED taillights, they look really cool at night. You still get incandescent globes over here, but this lights up nicely when you have those lights on. Rogue badge there, a big block here with HiLux written on it. You'll notice there's no sign writing down the bottom, which is kind of what Toyota was known for, with the big Toyota across the back there. Now this is interesting. You have a tray on the back, which is all fairly standard and straightforward, but this is motorized. So look at that. You don't have to put any work in at all. And this is the thing I find absolutely hilarious. I remember when I went to the launch of the last Rogue and I saw that they had carpet in the tray. I just laughed. It is actually hilarious. So they have a carpet there to, I don't know, pad your tools or your gym bag as you put it in. So strange, but you know, it's nice. You get a light off to the side there. You get a 12-volt outlet as well. And then under here, you have the additional tie-down hooks and other bits and pieces. I did notice, though, that they still don't have a torsion bar here to make this easier to open and close. And with all this stuff that they've tacked onto it, it's actually quite heavy. So yeah, it is a little bit disappointing that they don't have that. The other good thing with this as well is when you do lock the car, it locks all of this, so you can't actually get access to it. Now, in terms of payload, you have just over 800 kilograms available. If you have seen our other SR5 HiLux review, if you haven't, you can click up here. That had a little over 1,000 kilos of payload due to that chassis tray on it. This, on the other hand, loses that because of all the bits that they add onto this. All this stuff adds extra weight, and it means you don't get as much payload. But I think that should mean that it rides better out on country roads. We'll find that out later. And then finally, you have a 3.5 ton braked towing capacity. So we are inside the HiLux Rogue, or Rouge, depending on which part of the world you're from. Let's start with the key. So this is interesting. We've got one key here for the glove box. It's just a standard looking key with little cutouts there. Then we also have this key, which is a proximity sensing key. You can see there's lock, unlock, panic, Toyota logo, and then on the back, little outline of the HiLux. You just keep that in your pocket, grab the door handle, there's a button on there, and then once you jump in the car, you have a push button start off to the side. Now, what about styling? Look, I think they've put a little bit of effort here into the upper spec model. You can see this It's brushed aluminium-esque, but I suspect that's plastic. But I really like that design. It kind of splits up the cabin a little bit and takes your eyes away from the piano black that's located around the outsides of the screen. There's also an interesting design here with these JBL speakers. So they kind of look like they rise out of the dashboard. Then you've got these tweeter-looking things on the doors as well, little JBL logo there. So kind of an interesting design element, and that's all part of the infotainment system, which I'll run you through later on. Just in terms of the materials, it's all fairly solid and durable, but importantly, the touch points such as the center armrest and also the door here are nice and soft. How soft are they? Well, we've got our durometer. We've tested the main surfaces in this car. And if you want to see how it compares to other cars that we've tested before, there's a link in the description below. Now, what about build quality? Well, looks okay, but I do notice as I move that around, it's sort of shifting everything. A lot of you have asked why we bothered doing this. Yes, I know you're not going to do this while you're driving, or pretty much ever. I think it's just an indication of how well everything is assembled. If I do that in an Audi, nothing moves. Or if I do it here, you can see that's all one piece and kind of moving around. So it's just a relationship between this and build quality in general. Moving on to infotainment. So Toyota has updated the infotainment system for HiLux. It's now an 8-inch display, but it comes with new smartphone mirroring options. So we've already done a detailed review of this infotainment system. If you want to have a look at that, click up here. But today I'm just going to give you a brief overview. So that's what the home screen looks like. You have shortcut buttons on the side there. And now in terms of smartphone mirroring, you have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, both are via a cable though. So I'll show you what they look like. We'll jump in here to Apple CarPlay, full screen integration. Seems to work pretty well, nice and quick, and resolution looks pretty good as well. Let's have a look at Android Auto. Another full screen integration. Let's have a quick look there. Scrolls up and down fairly easily. Hey, by the way, if you want to see our comparison between Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, we already shot a video on it, and it's kind of interesting to see the differences between the two. You can click up here to watch that. Now, in terms of audio, you can connect directly to your phone and use your smartphone mirroring, or alternatively, you have AM, FM, DAB plus digital radio. Then in addition to all of that, you also have inbuilt satellite navigation, so you don't need to rely on a connected smartphone to make that work. So it's a good system. It can be a little bit laggy and slow, but once you do have smartphone mirroring hooked up, it's all pretty straightforward. Now, in terms of connectivity, you have one USB port, but keep in mind that if you do have your smartphone connected for mirroring, you won't be able to charge any other devices. You've got two 12-volt outlets, and then in the center console, you have a power point. What about safety technology? Well, HiLux now comes standard with autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian detection. You have a lane keeping assistant and a lane departure warning. Radar cruise control. No blind spot monitoring, unfortunately, but you do get front and rear parking sensors. Let's have a look at what the camera looks like. So there it is there. Look, the quality's okay. It's not terrible, but you'll notice here something odd. Because the camera isn't center, slightly offset, the middle marker for when you're backing in to connect your trailer is not centered either. It's sort of just offside the tow bar, so that's an interesting omission. Let's talk about practicality next, and we'll start with storage. Phone storage. Your phone can live here. Doesn't fit in there if you have a bigger phone. Well, it does, but it sort of gets snagged by that cup holder. And then down the front, there's a slot there. No wireless phone charging. Now, this is interesting. I'm going to take a second to explain this. Coffee cups. So this morning I got a coffee, plonked it in there and realized that while I'm driving, it's actually not safe to pick that up because it sort of just sits below the lip of that bottle holder. But there is a slot here in front of the vent to put your coffee in, which is good, except today it's bloody hot. And then I had the air conditioning running this morning and it was just blowing cold air on my coffee, so I had to close the vent. So, I don't know, just something interesting to take note of. In terms of room for bottles though, bottle easily fits in there, and then inside the door you've got a huge pocket there for a bottle. Center console gives you an idea of how tall it is, and then we have a glove box down here, reasonably sized, give you an idea of how big that is. And finally, you have the cool box. You can put your bottles in there and then open the air conditioning vent as well to keep them nice and cool. And finally, you have up here a sunglasses holder. Now, in terms of comfort, you have single zone automatic climate control, heated seats for the first row. You've got these leather-esque seats. I suspect it's some leather-like material. They hug you in nicely and they're actually quite comfortable. So I've spent a fair bit of time driving this now, and yeah, they're just super comfy, and when it's hot, you don't peel yourself off them. They actually have these perforations, so they keep you nice and cool. The driver's seat is electrically adjustable. The passenger seat is manual. And then in terms of the steering wheel, it is a big old wheel, but you have reach and tilt adjustment, and that just sits easily in the hand, and then all of these controls are easy to reach. Okay, back seat. Before I jump in here, let's have a look what is going on. So, Under here you have some storage. Igor, can you pull that one up for me? It's a little bit annoying you can't do all that from one side, because to access this side needs to be lifted up. So under there you can see you have the jack and a little bit of storage room, and then another storage space under there as well. I'll drop these back down. I'll hop in. There's a grab handle there, which is handy. Okay, legroom. Not great. You can see my knees are wedged into the seat there. I have no toe room either. My seat is pretty far back, but still, there isn't a great deal of room there. And in terms of headroom, pretty reasonable. If you're a little taller, you're going to be brushing up against there, but that's going to be fine for most people. You've got these cool hooks on the back of the seats, both the driver and passenger seat. You've got map pockets there. You've got air vents here. We have a center armrest with 2 cup holders. There they go. And then you've also got storage room in the doors for your bottles as well. Now, it is worth keeping in mind that you do have ISOFIX points on the 2 outboard seats, and you also have 3 top tether points. The back of this doesn't come down though, so you just loop them in through that hoop there, and then there's a metal hook on this side. Now, you may have noticed earlier that it's quite dark in here because this headliner is all black, the seats are all black, so there isn't a great deal of natural light that comes into the cabin, especially with that privacy glass as well. And it's quite funny because we're filming a Prado at the moment, and that's like the exact opposite of this. The interior is all beige and bathed with light, whereas this is quite gloomy in here. We're on the road in the HiLux Rogue. Under the bonnet is a 2.8 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder diesel engine. Now makes 150 kilowatts of power and 500 Newton meters of torque. So it's a big kick in the pants, and it levels it with things like the Ranger, which have been 500 Newton meters for a little while. And it kind of answers the complaints a lot of people had about this Toyota drivetrain just not having enough punch. It's mated to the same 6-speed automatic transmission. And let's see what that means. Look, it's got a good mid-range. I think that's where the HiLux really excels. Off the line, it can feel like it's a little bit laggy, but once you're out on the road, it drops down gears quick enough and it gives you that punch in the back that you need. One thing we did notice though is when you get above 3,000 RPM, it can get a little bit drony in the cabin. It almost creates a vibration from the front end that just resonates through the cabin, and it's just not entirely pleasant. In terms of fuel economy, Toyota claims a combined average of 8.4 litres per 100 kilometres. Let's have a look at what we're doing. 10.1, so we're about there. It is a little higher than what Toyota claims, but we have been doing a lot of city driving, a little bit of off-roading as well. So look, it's not terrible. It's actually better than I thought it would be. And overall, that's going to come down as you spend a bit more time out on the highways and kind of regulate your regular driving pattern. Let's talk drive mode. So you've got an eco mode and a power mode. So eco mode immediately dulls the throttle. I literally have to like bury it into the firewall for it to actually do anything. Power mode, on the other hand, sharpens the throttle. So all you do is breathe on it and it starts rowing back through the gears. It's actually quite an entertaining mode because it feels much quicker than it actually is. All it's doing is bringing back the percentage of full throttle a little earlier, so that instead of you having to go full travel with the throttle pedal, it'll just make it feel like it's quicker because that full throttle position is actually far earlier in the pedal travel. Now, we don't have an official 0 to 100 time, but we thought we'd put it up against a stopwatch to see how it goes. Now, what about the ride? When we reviewed the SR5 with the tray, we weren't really that blown away with it. It was better, but just not amazing. This actually feels worlds apart because they're adding around 150, 200 kilograms worth of extra components to this, and that means that it weighs down the rear a little better. You're getting better advantage of those dampers, the leaf springs are settling, and it means that when you are barreling along a country road like this with potholes and corrugations, that it just feels nice and smooth, and dare I say it, Ford Ranger-like. Okay, let's talk handling and steering. Yes, I know this is not a sports car, but what's it like if you do punt it through a corner? Well, we've got one here, tip it in, give it a punch. Hey, look, it's not terrible. It's not amazing, but it's not terrible. Yeah, look, I mean, it's a dual cab ute, but it sits nice and flat. The steering though, it's a hydraulically assisted steering rack. Toyota has resisted going to an EPAS system, the electrically assisted steering racks, and it's kind of paying the price for it because this feels super heavy, especially at low speeds. It also means that features like your lane departure assistant aren't very effective because all they do is brake wheels instead of turning the wheel, and they can be quite abrupt and harsh in comparison. Okay, what about turning circle? 12.6 meters. It's a fairly big turning circle, but a lot of the turning circles in this segment are pretty big simply because you have all-wheel drive systems to contend with. You're going to be doing a few 3-point turns. What about visibility? Well, dual cab utes are fairly big in terms of length, but in terms of width, they aren't actually that large. Where you're sitting here in the driver's seat, you kind of sit a little bit low. It's a little car-like compared to some utes where you sit quite high up. I can see down the front of the vehicle, this has front and rear parking sensors, which means it's fairly easy to locate. You have these big wing mirrors as well that give me great visibility down the side of the car, but strangely, no blind spot monitoring built in. And if I look out the back window, there is plenty of vision there. And I can also see the edges of the tray thanks to that little lip that sits on the end of that cargo bay. What about noise into the cabin? It's not terrible. We're driving along a coarse chip country road here and it's fairly quiet. There's not a great deal of noise coming in through the wing mirrors either. There is just that engine noise that I mentioned above 3,000 RPM that you have to contend with occasionally. But for the most part, it's pretty quiet. May as well call out here as well. It is stinking hot outside. It's 34 degrees Celsius. The air conditioner in Toyotas is sensational. The problem is the heater isn't very good. I've never found them to be all that effective, but in terms of air conditioning, I really feel that you could be driving through the middle of an arid desert and you would feel nice and cool inside the cabin. Okay, let's talk off-road specifications. You've got 247 millimeters of ground clearance, an approach angle of 29 degrees. It's the angle of the face you can approach before hitting the front of the car, and a departure angle of 27 degrees, which is the same, but in reverse. You also have a 700 millimeter wading depth, but the river is too high for us to test that out today. In terms of off-road hardware, you have high-range two-wheel drive, which is rear-wheel drive in this, and that's the mode that you drive around in day to day. You have high-range four-wheel drive, and then low-range four-wheel drive. You also have a rear differential lock and hill descent control, but keep in mind the rear differential lock only works when this is in low range. Now, if none of that really makes much sense to you, or if you want a refresher, click up here to have a look at our four-wheel drive controls explained video that goes into a little bit more detail there. So let's whack this into 4 high and we'll just go for a little drive here on our off-road circuit. And we'll start off with Log Mountain. I'll be keen to see how the traction controls work with this. It's all nice and dry at the moment, so it shouldn't be too much of a drama. But some of these ruts that the car falls into can be a little treacherous. Yeah, walk in the park. This actually feels a little more comfortable than the last SR5 HiLux we tested here with the chassis tray on the rear. This is actually really straightforward. Piece of cake. Okay, moving on to our rocks. Let's put hill descent control on and give this a shot and see how it works. There's some fairly nasty rocks here that are concealed by these weeds. Let's see if we nudge the underbody there. We'll actually switch that parking sensor off as well. There we go, a little tap there. That's much better. Okay, I can feel that hill descent control working. It's actually fairly quiet compared to the last car we tested here, which was the Prado. It is going a little bit quick though, so I'm actually taking over control of that with the brake myself. And then randomly it sort of lets you go. Okay, I can see what's going on. So basically, if you're touching the brake pedal and sort of trying to intervene yourself, it actually removes that hill descent control and lets it run away. So you kind of just need to trust the system, but I don't know, I'm a bit old school. I prefer to just do it all myself. Okay, so the Toyota HiLux Rogue. I came into this thinking I really wouldn't like this based on my experience with the chassis version of the SR5, but the extra weight over the back makes it a little bit more planted. The engine's nice and punchy. I love the air conditioning on super hot days like this. Yeah, it really just does what it says on the box. Yes, it costs more than it did last time, but I feel that it has the appearance now to justify the price tag, and I still find carpet in the tray of this absolutely comical because it is a work ute. So let me know in the comments section below, would you buy a Ranger Wild Track over this? Are you a Rugged X buyer instead? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section below. I'm really keen to get your feedback. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you share it. Also subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon because that's going to tell you every single time we drive cars that surprise me. But until next time, take it easy.